Of course, we begin here with our big story. President Biden confirming to reporters today that he has, in fact, decided on the response to that drone attack on a U.S. base in Jordan by Iran-backed militants that killed 3 American service members.
Yes.
You heard it there. Yes. Iran has since denied any involvement in that attack, but the president doubling down, saying that the country played a part in it.
What's the Iran response to this for the death of those 3 Americans? I do hold them responsible in the sense that they're supplying the weapons to the people who did it.
Well, this attack marking the first time that U.S. service members have been killed by enemy fire since the start of the war between Israel and Hamas. The Pentagon releasing their names yesterday: 46-year-old William Jerome Rivers, 24-year-old Kennedy Landon Sanders, and 23-year-old Breonna Alexandria Moffett, all from the state of Georgia. And while President Biden is facing mounting pressure to forcefully respond to that deadly drone attack, he is again reiterating that the U.S. is not looking for a wider war in the Middle East. So joining me now is our retired 4-star Army General Joseph L. Votel. He's a distinguished fellow at the Middle East Institute and has served as commander of U.S. Central Command and Special Forces Operations Command as well. So General Votel, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. You heard there a moment ago, of course. You heard a moment ago, you've heard the president say he has, in fact, decided how the U.S. will respond to this attack. But I'm curious, since he's made this decision, what targets would you advise him to consider, and would you suggest a strike in Iran?
Thanks. Yeah, so, the president and the nation has a lot of options available to us here. What I would be thinking about is both punishment and deterrence. And so I think it's important that the targeting go directly after the group that perpetrated this attack on Tower 22. We've heard of the organization called Kataib Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-backed militia group that operates in Iraq and Syria, being responsible. So it needs to be a comprehensive strike against this group, going after their leaders, their facilitators, and their facilities. At the same time, we should also be thinking about going after a target that sends a very clear message to Iran that we are holding them accountable. This could be something like an IRGC Quds Force leader in Iraq or Syria or perhaps Lebanon or Yemen, something that is of value to Iran and the loss of which they will feel. So it's very important that we take this 2- or 3-tiered approach to this and send a very, very clear and unambiguous message to Iran and their proxy network.
Right, we do have officials telling us that this retaliation will be, multiple targets over multiple days. We don't have any specifics there. Do you have any intel on perhaps where this drone actually originated from, and if Iran signed off on this attack, or is it possible that it could be a rogue group attacking without a full green light from Iran?
Yeah, thanks. So Tower 22, but for those our viewers will appreciate, is really located at the intersection of Jordan, Iraq, and Syria. So there are multiple directions that this drone could have come from. In my view, it is likely that it came from Iraq. That is where Kataib Hezbollah operates. They have bases out there in the western deserts of Iraq that would put it in perfect position to do something like this. It could have come from Syria. I really don't know. I think we'll have to wait and find out what the final analysis on that is. But it's clear it could come from either of those locations, likely from Iraq. In terms of Iran here, whether they signed off on this or not, here's the deal. Iran has developed these proxy networks, these groups like Kataib Hezbollah that are principally loyal to them. They provide them with military advice. They provide them with support, military hardware support. They provide them with political support. They are responsible for them, and they are extensions of Iran. So whether Iran specifically signed off on this or not, the bottom line is they have enabled these networks, and they are responsible for this attack and the others that we've seen for the last several months now.
You know, General, the president, is still stopping short of saying that Iran is directly responsible for these attacks, but, added that, as we've heard time and time again, that Iran is responsible for arming these groups. So is the White House being ambiguous in the messaging here? Should the rhetoric be more forceful and exact? Would that make a difference?
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would, and that's why I kind of use this word of being, unambiguous about our declarations in terms of this. Everybody who has served in Iraq or Syria for any period of time has come up against these organizations and appreciates that Iran is orchestrating this network and is principally responsible for it. We see it with Lebanese Hezbollah. We see it with these Shia militia groups. We see it with the Houthis. And whether they are actually pulling the trigger or launching the drone, I get that that's probably being done by these proxy organizations. But the whole thing is enabled by Iran. They are responsible for this, and they need to be held to account.
All right, retired General Joseph L. Votel, thank you so much for your time and your insight. We truly appreciate it. Absolutely. I want to bring our big story now to our panel. So joining us here today is our ABC News contributor and SiriusXM radio host Mike Muse, our ABC News contributor and former Republican Congressman John Katko, our Democratic strategist and president of Next Gen America, Christina Cincin Ramirez, and ABC News contributor and former CIA field operative Daryl Blocker. So thank you all for being here with us. So Daryl, let's start here with you. As you listen to that interview, what do you make of his analysis here that essentially the rhetoric is not really strong enough in terms of holding Iran accountable? And that's just the rhetoric, not necessarily the retaliatory strikes that we might see.
Absolutely, Kana. And I thought General Votel was very measured in his delivery, and he was also very accurate. He and I first back when ISIS was on full throttle between 2013, 2015. So I trust his analysis. I'm not certain that Iran, who's been backing these groups since 1979, are going to switch over just because the president uses some powerful words. I'm not for projecting exactly what we're going to do. So hopefully those responsible, the Khatib, Hezbollah, but ultimately Iran, they will get the message, and they're getting the message every day. Hopefully it'll make a difference in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, so far our retaliatory strikes have not really seemed to deter these Iranian proxies, but it is at least clear from the White House what they're saying right now, that this will be different. And John, what do you make? I mean, Republican members of Congress are calling on Biden to target Iran directly in response.
Listen, here's what I would like to see from this administration, which I haven't seen time and again, and that is to not take things off the table when things go south. They did this with Russia before they went into Ukraine and basically signaled to Russia, we don't want you to do this, but if you do this, we're not going to be at war. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. He basically said the same thing in his speech today. We're not going to do X, Y, and Z in Iran, but we're not happy about this. They seem to be careful what they're saying. And the point is, I was a prosecutor for 20 years doing organized crime. The worst people in the world were in my sites. They are in the Biden sites too. The only thing you understand is strength. If you do not project strength, and hope to God you never have to use it, you're going to be repeating this again and again. And that's my biggest concern.
You know, I've heard that sentiment, John, time and time again, that Iran will really only respond to force. And so, Christina, on that note, I mean, they're not going to think anything of even harsh messaging, even back-channel messaging.
Yeah, I think what the president is doing, the administration, is really important. First, they have to gather all of the facts. You have to remember that some of these groups are wanting to draw the U.S. into war, a larger regional war, and that it's really important to not just do that or react, but respond, begin with all the facts, and make sure that we are protecting the lives of American servicemen and women, three families that now lost their loved ones, but that we're also, a lot of Americans, while they may want a display of strength, a lot of Americans are also weary about being drawn into another military conflict, especially in this region where we spent 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq with very little way out. And so I think the administration is having to weigh all of those issues, along with the fact that, of course, there is growing pressure being placed by the administration and community groups and 1,000 Black pastors that called on the administration to call for a ceasefire to make sure that, again, we're not seeing servicemen and women's lives lost in the region.
Hey, Kate, if I may real quickly here,
please.
I just want to say real quickly, Christina's 100% right. But my point is, that the president needs to project strength on the front end. People need to be afraid of him before they act, not after. But Christina's right. What they're doing now is right, but they need to project strength on the front end, and they don't do that with this administration, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, you know, I want to take that to you, Mike, that same sentiment. I have heard so many people say to me, the U.S. is weak right now, and the world knows it.
Yeah, that is a sentiment that is definitely happening right now, in particular on social media, and people adding their comments. I kind of want to go with where John is taking us right now in the sense of if something isn't done, what John said was that we will see this continuing predicament happening more and more. The cautionary tale is that President Biden has to be mindful because what we don't want in the United States is to be engaged in a direct conflict with Iran and then broadening this conflict even more. What is really alarming to me is the fact that the U.S. has always had a very secured position in terms of the theater of war because most of our adversaries do not have the technology and the arms in order to attack us in the traditional sense. But now, Kana, technology has entered the chat. And now that technology has entered the theater of war, could we possibly see more drone strikes for our U.S. soldiers who are based across the world? And that is something that we have to begin to talk about in the sense of the way that technology has changed the playing field.
And certainly there's been some analysis that those drones are actually a cheaper way for these proxies to attack as they get, especially the Houthis get designated a terror group. So again, we will continue to watch this and continue to cover this. Mike, John, Christina, and Daryl, our thanks to all of you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.